Oh, I've got so many pens, but you do have nice. Ooh.
I've got even nice ones than that. No, I've got better ones than that.
Oh,
I'll dig them out.
Oh, it's a.
I'm saving the best ones.
They're triangle. Look at the quality of that. Ooh.
No, I've got the ones I've got. I don't even like to give them away, which is worth more. Because they're even nicer.
Okay. Well, we've already started. So whenever anyone's ready.
Start the introduction because I've got the.
Yeah. Can you project because you're a bit further away?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Right. So
we always have this because I talk really loudly.
I love you too.
I promise you're a professional podcaster.
I like that.
How relaxed it is.
Yeah,
I talk really loudly and Alex is really quiet. So, I mean, one day I'm going to have to start actually adjusting volume levels. I can't be bothered at the moment. People just have to listen more carefully for you.
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
Right. Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Pony Podcast. Today we're here with Carol Hughes, who's the director of Equibiome. They were here we met them at Beta, talking about the Equibiome product. The Equibiome is the first equine dedicated laboratory service which uses the latest technology to give a snapshot of the internal microbial community. And at Beta, they're launching findings from 10 years of research that resulted in a revolutionary new prebiotic, which we're going to talk to them about.
Yeah. Great.
I love this topic so much. We've already had a whole conversation on like biodiversity and environmental policy, basically, and I'm ready for that tangent to come. So we'll start with the first question. Hopefully our listeners will have listened to previous episodes and will know a little bit about this. But why are bacteria, especially in the hindgut, so important to horses' well-being?
Well, it's a new area. I think in humans, the research has gone mad in the last 10 years, really based on the fact that we've now got the technology to look at the bacteria. Before we had the next generation sequencing, you had to grow the bacteria, which was really slow, and you couldn't really get an idea of the depth or the species or how they interacted, because with the microbiome, it's about who's in there, but it's also about relationships because it is an ecosystem. So we haven't had the technology to look at the bacteria. Now we have the technology, we're now beginning to understand how it relates to health and how you can't really separate the microbiome and the bacteria away from health and the health of the host, because they've evolved together to provide each other with benefits, and that's the really important part.
What's the problems that you've seen with horse hindgut health over the last few years?
Definitely a loss of diversity. I think without a doubt you can look at this in a very complicated way. You can try and find bacteria and link them directly to health, but you almost have to stand back and look at the microbiome as an ecosystem, and without a doubt we've lost diversity. So we've lost the numbers of species. We know that because we've tested wild horses, and we know that horses with ulcers, colitis, have less laminitis, colic, have a different biome. They have less species, and less species linked to health.
Having done an environmental degree, the one thing that you see time and time again is problems nearly always stem from a lack of biodiversity and a lack of diversity in, like you say, different ecosystems and different environments, where things become more homogenous, so more of only one type of plant or only one type of animal, and there becomes less diversity and less things feeding into the food chain and the food web and that sort of thing. There nearly always are problems that stem from that.
Yeah, definitely.
And you just pump money into fixing them when actually all you need to do is just get some mixtures back in.
Yes, it's kind of simple to me. I guess when we went into it, it's mind-boggling. It produces mind-blowing amounts of big data. But when you actually stand back from it and you've got the population data coming in, it's actually quite a simple resolution. And at least it lets the average horse owner understand why they need to change the diet and what benefits they will get from doing that.
So your research started 10 years ago?
At least.
At least? Yeah. Wow. What was the trigger for it?
The trigger was I moved to Wales. I was based in Newmarket and Lambourne for maybe 20 years. I moved to Wales, and Wales had a network of scientists looking at phytonutrients in plants or phytochemicals, and we actually got involved. It was a little bit like we were in the right place at the right time. We didn't know why we were involved, but it was kind of interesting and it was free, so we did it. And at the time I had 25 acres of wild Welsh hillside with lots of plants in it that were very different. It was a very different environment to Newmarket. We had a herd of horses grazing on it, and they were healthier. So we started to ask questions. We had the ponies in Newmarket. They were always on the edge of laminitis. It didn't matter what we seemed to feed. I couldn't change it. I couldn't get control of it. They were native ponies. So we moved to Wales, and everything became different quite rapidly. And we were just really interested to know why. So we linked immediately to researchers in Cardiff who were looking at phytonutrients to develop medicine. And we got on board with the idea that we just wanted to know about nutrition. And then it led on to the gut bacteria as the research went on.
Do you think that's why so many native ponies that people have as riding ponies are always kind of laminitic risks or whatever? Because they're, I always assumed it was because they're designed to be on a Welsh hillside eating nothing of any great nutritional value, but actually it might be because they're used to eating such a wide variety of foods.
It's definitely what they're not getting to eat, not what they are getting to eat.
Where do you think, so the problems have stemmed from a homogenisation of hindgut bacteria, so not having that diversity. Where do you think that problem's come from? What started
the fact that we've concentrated with equine nutrition, it's come from an agricultural base. So it's very much about what is produced in the horse based on that. So it's about vitamins or separate nutrients, fats, carbohydrates. But what they don't really get a grip of, because it's a very complex area, is the phytonutrient benefits to the host, to the horse. And we've moved away from that for some reason. It's a very expensive area of research, and there probably aren't the drivers for it in horses anyway at the moment, but hopefully in the future, as the importance of biodiversity grows, people will have to look at it. So monocultural crops like feeding soya hulls, we've moved into that because it's cheaper, but there is an environmental crisis. There's also a crisis of health with the horse.
We were talking earlier about how that monoculture crisis, it's not just in the animals who are having it as feedstuffs, it's a real environmental crisis as well, because you're not getting the nutrients back into the soil and you're just draining the soil of all productive value. It's a real, monocultures and other traditional farming practices are a real kind of
drain.
Real drain. And they're just it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where our production's going down, and so you pump more fertilizers and whatever's into the soil, and that drags production down because you're pumping stuff into the soil. That it just gets worse and worse and worse. It really does feed into everything.
So what have been the main findings of your research?
There's a crisis. There's a gut biome crisis with lack of diversity, lack of good bacteria that support host health, and the lack of bacteria that are linked to good metabolism, and the amount of bacteria that are linked to inflammation, without doubt.
So lots of your research focused on, I can't pronounce it, really sorry, the Camardu.
The Carnevi. The Carnevi, Well done. It's
not Welsh.
no, that's,
How did that help your research?
I thought, again, a bit of a culture shock going to Wales. The Carnevi graze triple SI land, thousands of hectares on the left-hand side of the A55 going to Ireland. That's all I knew, really. And they looked a scruffy bunch of ponies that didn't really do much for me personally, but as you begin to get involved with the history of Wales and understand the importance of a wild kind of ecosystem, we knew that we needed to test them to be able to compare with domesticated horses. We needed to see a difference, or we needed to know what the differences were. So we took racehorses in Newmarket that were stabled and we took the carnivore, and we actually had to go out on horses and round them up, and because they graze on thousands, they are wild.
Yeah.
So we had to go and find them for a start, and then scare them into having doing some dropping so we could and test them. And we did the same with the cottagers. Hopefully I've said that right, in Spain, and we found that they were, yes, obviously different.
What were the main differences between them? Just basic health, or?
They have more bacteria that support vitamin production and make minerals bioavailable. They also have things that are called bacteriophages. So they're bacteria that are in charge of killing off a challenge to the host. So say if E. coli, for instance, we would, I don't know what we'd do with an E. coli infection in a horse, probably antibiotics, I don't know. But a wild horse has a system to deal with E. coli.
Like its own antibacterial.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So they're kind of more self-sufficient than your stabled racehorse.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think bacteriophages are quite a current theme of research.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to do that. Look at bacteriophages rather than antibiotics.
Well, we're facing an another crisis, an antibiotic resistant crisis, aren't we? So any kind of biological method of control.
I would like to say I think the carnivore deserve more respect. Yeah, I mean, fair enough for me too. I thought, far from being scruffy animals, that is such a wonderful ecosystem that we need to preserve. And I know there's pressure on the people that look after them to worm them, to inoculate them, to do all these things without realising how important they are, because they also have bacteria that clean the environment. So up there's lead mines, arsenic mines, old copper mines, and they have bacteria that deal with that. So they change, as do the cottagers in Spain, and some of that part of their biome will actually reduce the effect of herbicides and pesticides, because they do cycle, they are in the environment, and they do end up on our SSSI mountain ranges, and it's up to the mountains as they are a resource to clean up
these we learnt about them in my degree, where you have things called trophic cascades. So everyone's favourite example is when they introduced wolves to Yellowstone, and it ended up changing the course of the rivers through it changed the habits of the grazing animals, who stopped wearing down the riverbanks, and so the rivers regenerated, and it changed the course of the rivers. And just trophic cascades like that are everywhere, and them producing that bacteria that helps with all the environmental destruction that happened with the mining. You would never know until you do that research.
Until you have the technology to go out and find it. I mean, how lucky we are. For the cost of a blood test, it would have cost £150. You can analyse the whole microbiome. It would have cost hundreds of thousands. And the price will come down even further as we keep going.
How do you negate for people who will say, those ponies are just healthier because they're hardier than a racehorse is?
I think you have to look at it as an ecosystem. There's no other way of looking at it. I mean, yes, you're seeing the horse. He may be scruffy with a long mane and a funny conformation, but he's part of our life, isn't he? He's a viable part of who we are and what we are and the health of what we are. And you have to look at it like that. They're not hardy. They're just vital to life.
So it's saying that sort of your more wilder ponies are more self-sufficient. Do you think that other horses are so domesticated now that they couldn't get to that stage?
Well, we know they can, because we've looked at horses, we've done studies on race horses. We know from our years of research with plant nutrients that every nutrient, and there are a lot of them, there are a lot of chemicals in the plant, makes a change to the biome. And it's just a small change, it's a few bacteria. That's why you can't really, you have to stand back and look at the groups of bacteria that are not represented in high amounts, the single species, because your plant nutrients feed those species of bacteria that make a contribution to the diet. So we know that we can change the biome of a racehorse by introducing these nutrients into the food, which is great. I mean, easy in a way. It's easier than we thought.
Yeah, we talked a bit about how monocultures and just growing so that means just growing one sort of crop. So like seed hay, for example, would be just a monoculture because it's only one type of grass. We talked about how that was bad for the environment, and how techniques like, we were talking a bit about rewilding, which is basically kind of where you just let a farm go back to how nature would intend it, and so you just kind of leave it alone and let everything regenerate and weeds grow and everything like that, is doing something like controlled rewilding, so it's just letting different species of grasses grow together, that sort of thing. Is that a viable way to start introducing different bacteria into the gut and that sort of thing?
Yeah, totally, yes.
Yeah. So just letting them, just introducing loads of different types of feed.
I think most people struggle because we do run workshops and we have a lot of people that follow us on Facebook. And the biggest problem for a lot of people is they live on an old dairy farm, or the land's been fertilised, and that's the biggest hurdle to allowing plant species to regrow. So they have to be patient, they have to look at what grows in their environment, they have to look at their plant community that's local to them, and they have to respect where they are and grow, not go out and grow a mixture of mixed
Grass,
herbs or whatever, grass, whatever, but look at what will grow for them and try and introduce it. But sometimes you've got to reseed, every year.
So what have been, from your research, what is it that you've developed to help with the microbiome?
Well, we've got, really what I'd like, the gold standard is to have the test and grow your own stuff. I'm really big into that, make your horse's environment that bit better and more diverse. But in the meantime, we do have what we call biome foods that are plant compounds that we know will change the biome. So even if you've got a small horse up livery, you can buy a little bag of whatever we've got to feed the good bacteria. But really what we want you to do is go out and grow your own. We don't want you to buy it and put it in a bag. We want you to enjoy the journey and enjoy that thing that you're nurturing your horse in the way that it was meant to be.
That's
a really good way of thinking about it, because I think there's lots of people out there that would have created a product to sell it to...
So that you have to keep using the product, the product.
But I think with this it's about community, isn't it?
And working towards people being self-sufficient.
And to enjoying it. I mean, gosh, so many people enjoy hedgerow grazing. I've got trainers in Newmarket that love the idea of growing wild oat grass instead of rose bushes or whatever else ornamental, and the fact that the horses go out and want to eat it. That's what it's about, isn't it?
So sense of... you guys at Equibiome, you produce a prebiotic.
Yes.
A lot of people will have heard of pre and probiotics, but what is the difference between them?
Well, a probiotic is a live bacteria, but the problem is in the equine biome, they don't have those species that you can buy if you go out and buy a probiotic. They don't have those species in the gut. So I don't really know why there would be a benefit. Well, maybe, I'm sure there are for some horses, but we just don't know what those benefits are. But also, with the trouble with probiotics, there's a lot of legislation around growing them, importing them, selling them, and you're better off trying to feed what you've got in there anyway, and trying to rewild that, I suppose, rewild the biome, than put in something that shouldn't be there.
Concept. That concept so much. I had a horse that whenever we took her somewhere to stay away, she'd stop digesting any of her food, and it would be what came out the other end would be very liquid and definitely undigested. And someone had given me, I think someone had sold a horse and they were clearing out all their stuff, and they'd given me this syringe of prebiotic, and I kind of thought, I'll just shove that in. It's like magic, absolutely like magic. Like then you'd give her however much of a syringe I had to give her, and the next day she'd be absolutely regular and normal.
It's so strange, isn't it? It's so strange. It's actually easy. I mean, we've got this massive technology that's producing awesome amounts of data, but it still goes down to introducing that biodiversity back. It's so complicated.
So probiotics are like a little package of the bacteria to go into your gut, and prebiotics are
food for the good gut bacteria. So they like a particular type of food. I've got one.
Samples.
I'll find it in a minute. A lady had it. what she's done with it. If you see an open packet, grab it because it's wonderful.
Okay.
It tastes divine.
It's really interesting because we've had someone on recently who their business is looking at all the different aspects of managing your horse, so from their feed to the way that you train it and looking after its body.
Yeah.
And she's very into using herbs and naturally occurring plants to treat things, and we were asking her sort of her favourite ones and what they do. And it was amazing what's out there that you can just pick from the hedgerows and feed to your horse. And I think you people used to do that a lot, and now there's much more emphasis on going to a supplement company and getting a supplement to help with something.
And it being scientifically proven and everything.
I think that the sad thing, I've been in science a long time, but science to me is innovative and fun, I suppose. And I'm not really into measuring small bits of anything, because if you take something out of the bigger picture, you do run the risk of only proving a small point. Everyone hangs on to that small point.
Yeah.
And then you've got lots of things about, well, you've got to do that and it will give you that result. But you've removed it from out of its
Context.
Yeah. So that, I think, has been the most unhelpful part of science in the last maybe 2 decades. But with the new technology, molecular taxonomy, which is organising the information that the body puts out, so the chemistry, the molecular changes, you can now look at those and measure them, and you can understand them with the new technology. That's far more helpful to give you the bigger picture. And so single platform research, trying to find one little answer, one little thing, we'll move on, I'm sure. We'll move on if we can get it to do that. And so the people that are interested in the herbs and the plants and will find out that they were right all the way along. I'm going to lecture at a veterinary, I think it's Herbal Vets for Scotland, is in Scotland anyway, and they will really get the hang of the fact that all those phytonutrients in those plants are making a change to the biome, and that's so important. It isn't so much about curing a disease. We have to deal with a crisis now, and we have to make our horses healthier from now, and then we have to look at disease as a separate issue once we've got over the crisis. But I don't know how you can take the one out of the other.
It's funny, it's somewhere that I think antibacterials and antibiotics are going, where they discovered antibiotics were a drug that could be produced, and so they went really hard on the scientific and monocultured antibiotics, and now we're facing a antibiotic resistant bacteria crisis. People are going back the other way and going really hard on the kind of natural antibiotics and biological controls of using other bacteria to control bacteria and that sort of thing, where bacteria can't necessarily evolve to be resistant to it. And I do find it really interesting that we're really reverting to the more natural ways of doing and traditional ways of doing things.
Yeah, and I think with the research that we've been involved in Wales, there's still a gang of scientists that want to find that one novel compound and turn it into a drug.
And want to stay away from all the fluffy traditional stuff.
But I think they don't like the shotgun approach. They don't like the fact that a plant will do lots of things. They want to be able to say, they want to be able to measure it still. But I think in the future, I know with humans they maybe have 68 different types of information going on in their gut. And it's about organising the molecular data to make the cure or the treatment specific, or the therapy specific for that one person. And I think we will move towards that with horses. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed.
So moving on from that, where do you think your research is going to go now?
I think that I want to put this out to people to be able to understand. I think it belongs in the community. I think there's a lot of people who've looked for answers and haven't found them in veterinary research or nutritional research. And I think we want to fill that gap. We want to make it as user-friendly as we can. But we also want to create a big database so that students can come and get into our database, maybe look at more about laminitis or colitis or colic. And if we've got the resources that they can access for not very much money, that's fantastic. We want to do that.
I'm so excited to read it. I'm so excited. Like, I've got really into reading scientific, having not liked it at all, hated reading scientific papers at university. Now I've graduated and it doesn't count towards my degree. God, love reading a paper. Love reading papers.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for talking to us.
You're very welcome.
It's been so interesting. It's so interesting.
Thank you for coming.
That's all right.
Okay, if people want to find out more about you and your products and your research, where can they find more information?
We've got a busy Facebook. We've got 2 or 3. We've got one that we started in 2014, which is called Affluent Malnutrition. That's a Facebook page. And then we've got Equibiome with a hyphen in the middle, Equi-biome. That's a closed group on Facebook. That's busy. Website is Equibiome, www.equibiome.org. That's it. There's lots going on there.
Affluent malnutrition sounds right up my alley.
That's been going a long time, actually.
Yeah, that's so cool. And if you guys want to hear any more of our episodes, then you can head to wherever your podcast platform that you're listening to this on, and just scroll back, and all our episodes are there. And some of them are really good. Or if you go to YouTube, Alex has meticulously organised them all into playlists, so you can find whatever you're interested in without having to scroll through all of them. And you can follow us on Instagram at The Pony Podcast, on Facebook at The Pony Podcast, and if there are any episodes you want us to do that you want to specifically request, or you have any comments, or you just want to say hello, then email theponypod@gmail.com. All right, thanks for listening. Bye.